Hi everyone. I wanted to pick up this conversation about key influences that I have, and I wanted today to highlight the work of Professor Thobeka Mda, which I think is very relevant for some of the things that we're going through in South Africa today. She's done a lot of work on liberation from our slave mentality, and I want to borrow from that work and share with you a thought or two that I think are relevant for the discussions that we're having today. In order to introduce them to you properly, what I'd like to do is tell you a couple of stories. We've seen in South Africa that, for example, when people are angry, there's been a lot of destruction of public infrastructure. So for the sake of example, let's assume that somebody's been waiting for the Metro rail train and it comes more than an hour late. We've heard stories of how the train is torched, that it's burnt, and this is an expression of protest, of anger, and of disgust. What's interesting about the people that perpetrate these types of destruction of public property is that when they get home, and they find something that is more infuriating, and for this example, let's say that they find their intimate life partner in the throes of an adulterous situation, what you don't find in response is that they take a baseball bat and they hit out every single one of the windows in their house, that they torch the curtains, that they burn the carpets, and that they smash their flat screen TV on the pavement outside. It's curious that the responses are so different, even though the motivating emotion of anger is the same. Let's leave that scenario for a little bit and let me talk to you about some of the mansions that I've visited, and these people who, some of whom smoke, they are very happy to curate all of the cigarette ash and butts in their homes neatly into ashtrays. However, they get into very expensive SUVs, sedans, sports cars, and while driving on a public road, they're very happy to roll down their window and to throw the cigarette butt out onto the public road. This is very interesting because in both instances, people respond very differently even when they're engaged in the same outcome. In the case of protest, the difference and the motivator of how it is that that person responds is based on what they perceive they own. You see, they perceive they own their home, and therefore they're not going to destroy it, no matter how angry they are. But they don't perceive they own the train. And therefore it's permissible, not being an owner of the train and an owner of the public infrastructure, to torch it as a means of protest and of making a statement. Similarly, with the person who's the smoker, because they perceive they own their home, there's no prospect that they're going to litter it with a cigarette butt. But because they don't perceive they own the public infrastructure, they're happy to act differently when the motivation is the same. So this has implications for us because when we understand that ownership acts us to act in fundamentally different ways, let's look at a few scenarios that are different. If you own a significant minority share in a company, even if you don't like that chief executive, even if you can't stand him and you think that he should be fired and you would have done so if it was up to you, you don't do so. Or you don't act against the best interests of the company, even if you can't get rid of the chief executive. You don't do this because you understand that if the company succeeds, you succeed. Big profit, big dividend. Big loss, you have to fund that loss. And so how you act, regardless of how you feel about parts of the business, you still act within the best interest of the company, even though you don't like the CEO or even the management team. It's a similar thing because we perceive we own our bodies. When we find out that our bodies are suffering a disease, we go after the disease, we don't go after our bodies. We don't put ourselves down because we find out that we have cancer. What we do is we attack the cancer, but try and preserve the whole. We preserve everything that's fit and good about us. See, where we are in South Africa and expressing our frustrations today is that we're in danger of throwing out the baby with the bathwater. The baby needs to be preserved. There are many things about this country which are good, which function well, which are positive, which need to be nurtured, and they will grow into things that will sustain us, that will make us happy, and that build and contribute towards the South Africa we love and we hope for. There's also the bathwater. Things like corruption, things like social injustice, violence, bigotry, racism, which we need to throw out and eradicate. But we need to be careful that we do so discerning what needs to go, and we also need to do the job of preserving what needs to stay. We are the ones that need to take ownership of this country. We need to starve the weeds and we need to water the trees to make sure that what we like grows, what we don't like goes. So, in what I'm advocating and what I'm asking you to do today is that act like an owner and be mindful of the fact that not everything is lost. Don't only focus on the negative, that there is a positive side to this country and this government as well. This is not to say that there aren't significant cancers that need to be eradicated and significant things that need to be overcome. But we do ourselves an injustice if we only focus on that and not on the whole. If we focus on the whole, we'll get the balanced view that we have an equal responsibility to get rid of the cancer and to feed what is good and healthy in our country. We need to do both. I encourage you to do both. We can do them both at the same time. Let's not just fixate on the negative and not work as owners of this country. Let's act like an owner and make sure that we take care of the parts that we need to while we eradicate the parts that need to go.